Hey y'all, happy Thursday. Look, get some energy, right? Radical people, let's make some noise. Woo woo. Yes, all right, that's what we needed. So if you do not know about, let's even just pause for a second. How many of you have heard of Venture for America before? Raise your hand. Of course you, Melissa, you know everyone. No. All right, so look, I did not know about this amazing organization and the work that they did until actually an I-10 conference last year, Amplify, that Melissa was a part of. So I want to introduce our amazing panel here and tell you a little bit about VFA, okay? So right next to me is Matt Phimphavong, y'all. They used to call him Pimp in college, but you don't have permission to say that, okay? No. And then they can call you that? Okay, you have permission to call him Pimp, okay? Just here, not outside the room, all right? He is he's a fellow and he's a principal at Cultivation Capital. You're the principal, is that it, just the title? Correct. Principal at Cultivation Capital. All right, next to him we have Nate that is a 2022 fellow. He's an e-commerce manager at Native Pet and a co-founder, right Nate? Yeah. Yes. And Nate, I'm sorry, Taminger. I said that right? I did. Look, y'all, I'm on these names today. I'm so proud of myself because I don't speak the Queen's English and Ebonics is my first language, so be proud of me too, okay? Be proud of me too. All right, next to him we have Mr. Alfred Johnson. Anybody heard about Arch Granson here? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. All right, Arch Granson. This is their, he's also an alum from Charlotte of VFA 2016, and he is the director of the portfolios at Arch Grants. So give it up for Mr. Alfred Jackson, because some of y'all done got some Arch Grants money in here before. All right, and then next to him is also our current VFA fellow, Miss CeCe Mingo, who is the co-founder of a Candid Remarks show, and her co-founder in the front seat. So look, shout out for people who have co-founders, because I could never get one, all right? And then last but not least, the greatest of them all, no, Miss Jess Longueville, who is the director of our St. Louis chapter for, not chapter, are we a chapter? We're a chapter.
It's just one of our 13 cities.
One of our 13 centers. So it's like, again, it's a national organization. I try to say chapter because I belong to so many associations, but Venture for America, and she's also a supportpreneur. How many of you guys have been to the Vandy? Yeah, no? You need to, okay, right? We know about the Vandy, but if you don't know, you need to go check it out. Also, Barkeep, they also do a lot of amazing events from Tower Grove, the big
music in the intersection. The
music at the intersection that just happened, the Big Top. So her and her husband are co-founders there. So look, we have a very diverse panel here, not only fellows, directors, and entrepreneurs. So you're going to get full today, and we want to tell you about why it's so important for us to keep talent here and bring talent here and give them experiences. So let me just tell you a little bit about VFA. Matter of fact, Jess, why don't you do us the honors and tell us about the history of VFA?
You also didn't really talk about yourself.
Oh, I didn't. Hey, y'all. So my name is Brittany, Raji, Alberty. I'm a third-generation entrepreneur. I'm also the founder of the Marketing Midwife, which I do some influencer marketing with campaigns all over the country that want to reach my audience, as well as I do some physical technical assistance for local entrepreneurs and national, depending on the chain, okay, depending on where we are. But that's a little bit about me, and I'm also associate board member here, advisory board member for Venture for America. Back to you, Jess.
Thank you. Thank you, Brittany.
Yep, get the mic.
I can do that. And then Haley, if you would you click maybe a few over? Here's just a little boom, boom, boom.
Give it up for Haley, y'all.
Yeah,
look,
she's
give it up for Haley.
You can click to the next one. All right. So hi everyone. Jess Longueville, like she said. Venture for America is a national nonprofit. We operate a 2-year fellowship program that connects recent college graduates and early stage career professionals to local startups across our 13 cities. I can try and name all 13 cities, but it's St. Louis, Kansas City, Tulsa, San Antonio, Detroit, New Orleans, Miami, Charlotte, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and I might be missing one. Philly. I always forget Philly. I think it's because I've never been there. But we are specifically in those cities because those cities are often overlooked and considered flyover, just like St. Louis when it comes to our startup and small business ecosystems. And also they're considered emerging or growing. So we're purposely in those 13 cities. You won't see us really on the East Coast. So we're really trying to develop early career professionals in these cities by connecting them again with startups. And then there also could be founders within those, within our talent pipeline. So they, like, again, I think we have two founders on here. So we also have national programs that also support the cultivation of them starting their ventures. Some of them have already started their ventures, so they can compete for capital. They can be in our accelerator program. And then in our cities, we are also connecting you to the local resources. So like Arch Grants, we've had a few companies out of VFA go through Arch Grants and be successful. Bold Exchange, Rebundle, Balto, to name a few. I think Athletic, but I feel like I don't know what happened, Athletic, but they're Detroit. So we've also connect them to those local resources to help them also be successful in our cities, because we really want to, one, grow talent from within our cities and also bring talent to our cities to contribute to our ecosystems. And so we're trying to do everything possible to keep them here, grow their careers, and grow their businesses. So that's a little bit about us. Haley, if you could that's a little snapshot of us. You can go to the next one. This is kind of, so here in St. Louis, we've been here since 2014. I think actually in the first class, Chris Contes from Balto, he was one of our first fellows. We've had over 70 fellows, and that's including this current class, that have come to St. Louis and have started working in our startups and have also started businesses. And then we've have a little over 30 that are still here living with us, and also growing their careers. And then we've had 11 who've co-founded companies. Either they've already had companies when they came to Venture America, or like Nate here, who just like competed, was it SPAT at our second year national program. He competed with another fellow. I think he won second place, right? They are now moving forward, and I think they officially launch on Sunday, their company Seacycle. So we see that as well. And then just a little bit about like kind of retention, 2021 class, which is Matt's class, we saw within the second year, because it is 2 years, so you're paired with that startup and a full-time job with access to benefits or a stipend for 2 years. And we've seen over 90% retention rate, so we keep people. And why you see the 70 to 30 is because some folks, either their businesses don't do well in this market. We had somebody who had a competitive tea company, and she was like, St. Louis isn't a really big tea drinking city, so I really have to like move on so that I can be more successful. But she's still working for a St. Louis startup with Nate, and so she's still contributing to St. Louis in a different way. So that's a little bit about us. And I'll throw it back to Brittany to kind of start our questions.
So if you didn't know, you should know, because we're doing some amazing things here. Okay, VFA is doing some amazing things globally, well, national. So let's go into this. Why is St. Louis considered an emerging and growing market for entrepreneurship? This question I want to gear towards Mr. Alfred.
Can you ask the question one more time?
Sure. Why is St. Louis considered an emerging and growing market for entrepreneurship when it comes to startup talent and founders?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, I think the reason why we're considered that is, one, you kind of think about the size of the city that we are, but then also in relation to the size, just the amount of resources and entrepreneurial friendly kind of environment that we live in. So whether it's St. Louis University, Harris Stowe, UMSL, WashU, you kind of think of the university systems are putting out great entrepreneurial talent. We even look at the high schools, like think about how many like high schoolers that are from St. Louis that go on to build these massive companies. I think, of course, OpenAI is something that everybody kind of knows, but like that's a St. Louis, the Altman brothers are St. Louis guys, right? Or even, so you kind of have that going on. And then after that, after high school, after college, then you have, just the the entrepreneurial resources that folks can tap into here, whether it's I-10, of course, on the funding side, Arch Grants, for like early stage funding, but even like for talent attraction or kind of talent cultivation, if they didn't come from those universities, you can go, tap into Launch Code and go work at an early stage startup. So I think from there, you kind of just have like a lot of great resources for startups, but then too, you think about just outside of that, kind of actually kind of go to the next stage. For the city, for the size of the city that we are, having great funds here like Cultivation Capital, Lewis and Clark, can't think, Yield Lab, thinking of a few. If you kind of look at similar markets to the size that we are, it's like, wow, we actually really are a great entrepreneurial ecosystem, just in regards to university talent, in regards to having programs like VFA being based here in St. Louis. And then if you're actually going to try to build like a big tech company, you can go and get an arts grant, you can go and get some funding, you can go get, you can get investment from the Spirit of St. Louis Fund. If you're a CPG company, we have great CPG companies here, like a Native Pet, that have gone on to raise multi-millions of dollars. We think of Somersault as well. So I think sometimes we can maybe see our city as really small and kind of like, oh, we're not doing enough. But when you compare it to even a market that I think St. Louis always compares it to in regards to Charlotte, there's way more kind of funding resources available in a market like Charlotte. I mean, in a market like St. Louis, compared to a market like Charlotte, where they don't really have much of a pre-seed market, much of like too many seed funds. So, I'll stop rambling from there. But we are a great ecosystem for entrepreneurial talent, entrepreneurial ventures, and then the capital to support it. And obviously, you may have to go raise some additional capital from other markets, but you can still build a great career here and build a great business here because all those building blocks are ready for us.
I love that. I love that you brought out a few different things. One, that we have an amazing entrepreneur ecosystem. I know some ecosystem partners out in the audience, but I want to talk about this particular point.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
We actually have like a state-led venture fund that actually makes investments too with MTC. So you think about just every single stage where there's arts grants, and you go out and get MTC funding, you can go out and get money from a Cultivation, a Lewis and Clark, and there's different kind of steps in that capital stack. You have those resources here. So I wanted to make sure I made that one kind of edit to my comment. So thank you.
We're good with that. So whatever level you are, there is support and also funding available. That's what you're saying. Okay. All right. Y'all got that? All right. So this question is for everyone. I would love to start right here at Matt, because you've been around for a minute, right? What do you believe are the benefits for building the entrepreneur talent pipeline here in St. Louis?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with what Alfred said. I think we in St. Louis have a very special ecosystem where it's more St. Louis focused than, performance or traction. It's like if you're a founder looking to build a company here or willing to move to build a company here, we're going to have money for you and we'll encourage you to do so. So I think that's something that kind of sets us apart. And then, I think just given kind of where St. Louis is, and just kind of from an economic standpoint, we have a lot of large corporations based here, so there's a lot of capital flowing around even at later stages where you could talk to a Purina if you're doing something in the pet space, or Spire if you're in energy, or Anheuser-Busch if you're doing something food and beverage, and all sorts of other companies as well. So I think having so many large corporations in a city that's maybe not as large as some of the other cities that people think of as startup hubs and tech hubs provides a really strong boost and helps St. Louis punch above its weight.
I love that. We don't think of ourselves sometimes as mighty as we are, but we do have a really strong economy here in St. Louis. Would anyone like to follow up to that? What do you think are the benefits for building the entrepreneurial talent pipeline here? Jess, I
could add on.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of what he says, the beautiful of our ecosystem, right? It's really diverse. We have, my company is service-based, right? We've got a lot of tech companies here. We have, the ag tech. There's heavy VC. We're one of the, I think, heaviest banked cities in America, so there is a lot of capital, to his point. And then we also have health tech. We have, with Washington University, SLU here, there's a lot of innovation in that. And then pointing back to the universities as well, I love that the universities have joined together to be on the same page and kind of empower and unite their force there. But also I would say building that pipeline and having a place when companies are growing is technicalities here is avoiding a shortage of talent, right? We need to know that there's talent here. We're growing it. We're cultivating it. And then also with kind of growing homegrown talent, we are really lucky that we have Launch Code. We have the Empowers. We have CyberUp. There are a lot of different organizations out there that are upskilling people so that they're ready for jobs in this space. I also think just the personality of St. Louis and our people. We're really gritty. We're hard workers. We know how to get creative with our solutions. And so I think that there's a lot of really great people here who understand what it's like to have the entrepreneurial mindset and are ready to work for you. So that's what I'll add.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name's CeCe Mingo. I'm a co-founder and CEO of the Candid Remarks Show. And the purpose of our platform is to foster community and connections through having intergenerational conversations. And what we do mostly and who we are focused on are people of color, even though anybody can get takeaways from our platform and our podcast. We are heavily focused on providing like that healing and connection for people of color. And so I think that that's a big kind of market here in St. Louis. There's a lot of room for growth there. So I think that is something that makes St. Louis a unique city for businesses who have similar target audiences and markets. There's not a lot of organizations in existence here already and established and within the culture. So I took my time and my experience from New Orleans and really translated it here to St. Louis and kind of looked through the lens of how can I get that same kind of majority experience translated here in my hometown where I'm from, so it can be kind of a just better all-around experience for everyone here in St. Louis. If you have lived here, then you know we are a very segregated city, so I don't have to go too much deeper into that.
Thank you for bringing up that point. To that point, I want to actually shift just a little bit, but stay focused. Do you feel, and I actually want to target this towards Nate, okay, because you haven't spoken at all, okay? Do you feel it is easy to break up into the startup field without a personal reference?
So in St. Louis, I honestly do think it was quite easy to break into the startup field without a personal reference. Like I moved here from Miami last year. I really knew nobody in the city. But what I found is, I'm coming from Virginia. I found that people out here very much like people in Virginia, which is people are very nice, people are very kind, and like people are very welcoming, right? So people are excited about, and like the startup team specifically in St. Louis is very excited about what's going on in St. Louis. Like you go to Venture Cafe, you go to all these stuff like this, and there's a lot of really passionate people that are working to kind of for the future of the city, which I think is really, really exciting. So I did find that even without a personal reference in St. Louis, and obviously the resources of Venture for America made it much easier, but it's definitely a scene that you can break into without too much.
I want to shift now. Like, you got a great perspective. Alfred, what do you think working on the other side? Like, you're on the back end where people probably want to get connected with Archcrest. Do you think that this is an easy city to break into without a personal reference in the entrepreneurial scene?
Yeah.
Look, we gotta keep it real. Look.
I would say it's a city that's pretty easy to navigate once you have at least one person that's like, I know this person.
Yeah.
So even I look, for me and my experience, like thankfully coming into St. Louis, I had the Venture for America stamp, like, oh, okay, you're in VFA. But then two, it helped that even when it came down to, being involved at Arts Grants and getting my job at Arts Grants, it helped that a guy that works over at St. Louis Partnership was a childhood friend of my mom, and like this guy could give a really good, just like, hey, this guy's really great. Like you all should talk with him, and it helped having, older St. Louis professionals like Chisholm Uche, who's an older St. Louis fellow that was really involved, kind of also vouching for me. So I think on one end it's I think St. Louis is it's an easy city to kind of like pop into. But I think in regards to like really having a great experience here, it's hard to have that unless you have people that are kind of like, or people or organizations that are willing to, kind of say, hey, like this person's great. And I think too, now the question is like more long tail, like, after you kind of become like this cool young professional, then it's like, okay, well then what is like your long tail here? And I think I think those are the things that I think we all can relate to as young professionals. It's like, okay, what is that next stage of investment in, as we kind of enter the next stage of our careers as new leaders in the city or as new leaders within our organizations, or whatever we spin off to do our own things, kind of how does the city make it easier for folks to kind of take that next step versus just kind of like, okay, you got here, cool, you did WashU, you did VFA, or you work at some cool place. Like when you're actually going out to like take that next stage, or like, trying to go, like for example, if you're trying to go sell into a large corporation here, like what are the next stages for you to kind of really be able to break into the next class of business in St. Louis? So I think the startup ecosystem is great. I think the next step is like, okay, how do we make this experience the same for the next stage of kind of like St. Louis business? Does that make sense?
Got it. Yeah. So we're talking about from startup stage now to going into having a viable business model and being sustainable and scaling. I love you brought into like definitely a journey. I'm pretty sure people can even relate to that in the room. Like, hey, it's easy to get into an accelerator, but what do I do when I'm done? Where do I get the money? And I think this would be a good perspective. This is not on the paper, but how many of you are local and how many of you are from somewhere else?
I'm local. I moved away in 2017 to go to the best HBCU, Xavier University of Louisiana.
Pop your stuff.
I lived there until 2022, and I moved back November 2022, and I've been here, and it's been a culture shock, even though this is the city that I'm from.
Okay. So I like that. Yep. Jess, what you got?
I'm actually a transplant. I don't know if we even say that anymore. I know that's what was being said when I first got here. So I actually moved to St. Louis in 2011, and I'm from Lower Alabama, what we call LA, so the Gulf Coast. Some of you have probably, and there's my accent, have probably vacationed either in Gulf Shores or Orange Beach or near Pensacola. That's where I'm from. I went to a liberal arts college, Spring Hill. There are a lot of St. Louisans that go to that school because it's close to the beach and it's on a golf course and the athletics. So the majority of my friends were from St. Louis, and I'd always wanted to like be in a bigger city. And I kind of came here, fell in love, and never left.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm from, so I'm not from here. I'm from a town called Rock Hill, South Carolina. About,
Okay.
20 minutes
The
south
South
of Charlotte.
is in the building, y'all. Look.
Yeah, and but so I moved here after going to Loyola University in New Orleans. A different experience.
Yes.
Sister college, Spring
And,
Rivals.
And well, like like family.
Yeah.
But
You know you got a cousin you don't like for real. All right.
yeah, but I moved here in 2018 to work at Arts Grants. Left in 2021 to go work down in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But then the story that I heard my whole first 2 years here was like, the moment you meet somebody from St. Louis and you start dating them, you're gonna end up coming back here. And that happened. And I got engaged to a St. Louis girl. So like now I feel like a local now, I guess.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and then I'm also a transplant, so I came from Richmond, Virginia. That's where I was born and raised. And then I went down to the University of Miami in Florida for college, and then joined VFA and moved here back in August of last year. So like CeCe said, definitely a culture shock moving to St. Louis from Miami, but I found honestly it's been a lot like Virginia, so it really hasn't been like too much of a culture shock. I will say that winter last year was a bit rough for me. Hadn't done winter in like 4 years, so I was a bit upset there. But besides that, it's really been great, so can't complain too much.
I love that.
Yeah, and I'm a native St. Louis and born and raised in Afton. Don't really see myself leaving because I'm in the greatest city in the world already. So no reason to.
I love that. And I am a native. I'm from North County.
Go ahead, sis. Me too.
Right? Look, from North County. No, I moved away and I've lived in every time zone of the country. And I definitely still believe that we have like the most talent here. I've seen the hardest working people, the most talented people. I think that we definitely can work better together and collaborate more. But I wanted to bring that up because this next question I feel like that kind of like reels us in a little bit. What do you think will elevate the visibility of our talent here and that will really help us attract more people? Let's not even say attract because we've all heard these people are from other places, right? He's from South County, basically. I'm from North County. Those are two different cities. I don't know if y'all know. But we all are here for some type of, or we feel grounded here for some reason. How can we keep people here? Not just attract people here because we have amazing things. How do we keep people in St. Louis?
Increasing the culture. That is a big part of why I do not like being here in St. Louis and why the first opportunity I get to go back to New Orleans, I will be going. Because the culture, from my perspective as a Black woman, it's not very inclusive of all types of people and all types of backgrounds. So I think if you were in the last session, she spoke on if you can get through the task of somewhere, so I can get through life being here, but there's something innately in the culture that just doesn't resonate with me, and I think that that's a lot of people. They don't feel like there's a space here in the culture for them, so businesses coming into the space and making it known, hey, we are here for the culture and the people that are generally looked over. I think that could make St. Louis a more standout city for all types of people and not just certain niche kind of groups.
I don't want you to leave, but okay, we'll talk about that off camera. Okay.
Well, and I kind of build off of that. I've worked in nonprofit since I've started my career here, and I've been in arts and culture, I've been in philanthropy, I've been in tech, and now I'm really passionate about workforce development. So some of that I think is like what we touched on earlier, is like making St. Louis a little bit more connected and knowing, because like I think we're pocketed around like the assets that we have, right? We know the talents here, but sometimes it's hard to find, which is why we're like talking about it. We know the arts and culture and like richness is here, but it's in pockets. So like I think like being more intentional about how much more connected we are as a city, and to like point to those resources, point to the great things that are happening, and yes, invite more people and be more inclusive. Like, yeah, we'll keep people here. People will know more, intentionally about like the resources that are here, because we are heavy with capital, we are heavy with accelerators, and I think people are changing out of that mode, but like we're heavy with a lot of support systems, and people really cheer and want St. Louis to be successful. But yeah, I think we just need to be a bit more connected.
I love that. Anybody want to build up on that?
Can you ask the question one more time?
Sure. I wanted to ask, so how can we elevate the visibility of talent already here? And then also, it says attract, but I want to say, how can we keep people here? Because obviously we attract people here. We got great universities, all those things. But how do we keep startup talent, founders, entrepreneurs in this city after they get the resources?
Yeah, so in regards to like the first part of the question, like elevating talent here, elevating, the talented people here, I think it's one part culture. And I think that's just, the thing, you compare St. Louis to New Orleans, one of the great things about New Orleans or New York or Chicago is that you have people telling the story of those cities and of those markets. And that comes through the arts, that whether it's music, whether it's visual art, but it's the story being told. So on one end, it's just kind of like, if you look at, I think Nelly's like just an easy one, but if you look at newer artists coming out of the city, like a Smino, like a Jordan Ward, where you have these people that are championing the city, like it's good to see that. But then on the other end, you want to see the people that are still here championing them. So I think one of the dopest things that I find to be just cool, being here in and out for the last 4 years is, with St. Louis City Soccer, having Metro Boomin, who's from St. Louis, come back and like do a show. Like those are things that I think sometimes maybe I won't say older folks, but particularly folks that may not, like for instance, like we're all caught up in our own kind of echo chambers in whatever culture we're in. But if you're somebody that lives in Wildwood, you may not understand why Metro Boom is really dope. But if you're a young kid that's 13 years old in St. Louis and you see a Metro Boom, you're like, wow, that guy did the soundtrack for Spider-Man. He's from St. Louis, and the new soccer team brought him to come back. Like those are things that are like really important to just like kind of like that, going back and investing back and forth in culture.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead.
I wanted to say just add one thing.
And then I want to come back down here too,
yes.
y'all. Okay,
He can
all
go
right.
first.
Go ahead, go
Because
ahead,
I
go
already said
ahead.
what I said, yes.
No, you sure?
Yeah, I'm positive.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think one thing is kind of what Alfred and I touched on is if you're from St. Louis, you tend to not leave St. Louis. So I think that is also kind of a detriment to us, because, when you hear somebody from Chicago or Boston, they don't shut the hell up about being from Chicago or Boston, but we don't really have that as much in other places because a lot of us are still here, so we can't be like, yeah, I'm from St. Louis and it's way better than Chicago, and here's the reasons why. So I think that is part of it, and I think the second part of the question was, how do we keep startups and their talent here? And I think we have a really good early stage startup ecosystem, from funding idea stage companies to accelerators to seed funds and Series A funds. But once you get to probably a 50 million plus valuation and have raised money and started to scale the business and have a lot of employees, it gets harder to find capital, especially if you're still high growth, burning cash, and not really investable for a large private equity group or something like that. So I think the key would probably to have later stage funds and investors come in willing to bet on less risky growth deals with companies that are still performing well but still are growing at a very high clip, so they're still losing money, so there's still risk there. I think that's kind of the one part of the ecosystem that we're still missing a little bit of.
Got that. I want to hear Nate. Nate, you've been so quiet. What you got, Nate? Come on, e-commerce guy.
So, no, honestly, I've been here for a year, so I'm honestly just kind of taking all this and learning from these people on stage as well. As far as, retaining talent in St. Louis, I think that St. Louis as a city really needs to believe in itself as a place where talent wants to stay. Just for example, last week I went to a concert and I was with my buddy from Miami, and he has a New York ID, I have a Virginia ID, and we go to get a beer and we give the lady our IDs, and she's like, "Why are you here?" And she's actually incredulous, and she's basically kind of thinking we're underage, we have fakes, because she's like, "Why would you be in St. Louis? You're 23 years old, you're not in school, why are you in St. Louis?" I think it's kind of a jarring scene. So it's I'm here because I want to be here. I'm excited about being here, And I think we really just got to get the people in St. Louis to see how much is going on. So I think just being more visible within the city, kind of showing, highlighting, the exciting stuff happening, will just kind of just help people stay excited and want to stay here longer.
All right, Jess, we good on time? I know. We good? Yeah, we good? Okay, we good. All right, I'm just making sure y'all tell me when I'm at 5, okay? Let me know. All right, cool. So I want to echo that just a little bit. As y'all see, I'm St. Louis out today. Shout out to Series 6. I think we need to stop being so negative about our city.
Agreed.
Thank you. We need to stop being so negative. We have amazing things happening here, but we need to really echo those. Shout out to the STL Made movement and STL. They're doing a great job. Metro Boomin, the St. Louis Stock. We have some amazing initiatives. We need to echo that more outside, and that also it intertwines with our business. That's just my 2 cents, okay? But I want to ask you guys, I know you all have worked either with founders or startups at some type of close level, an intimate level, even before starting your own, if that's where you are. Tell me about what's the most meaningful experience that you've had with your VFA experience thus far in St. Louis. Or no, I know you came from Charlotte, so if you want to share about Charlotte, you can too. But what's been the most meaningful experience that you've had in the companies or the roles that you've helped professionally or even personally?
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So I think the really cool thing about being young and being in Venture for America and working for a startup is just the access you get to working with is very kind of high caliber and very effective people from a young age, right? So. For example, I started as a data analyst at Native Pet. My background's all in meteorology, computer science, and math actually. So I didn't have any real business skills. I started as a data analyst, kind of get my foot in the door, but very quickly was able to move up and take over the e-com role, just because I had that exposure that I was working alongside my CEO, working alongside the CFO from basically day one, and just showing that I was capable of more things. So I think that's one really cool thing. I know compared to a lot of my friends who work more traditional jobs out of college, I definitely feel I've been learning a lot more and meeting a lot more people as a result. I'll often say that I think I've made the most friends since college of any of my other friends in college, just because I kind of went out there, moved to a city I had no real connection to before, and then just really took advantage of the opportunity. So, and I think that's just a really, really awesome thing about working in a startup and doing Venture for America.
I love that. Anybody else want to follow? That was good, Nate.
That was good.
Yeah, so I think for me, not one specific startup, but just I think in my role as a investor and capital allocator, I get to see a lot of really cool companies, many of which are built in St. Louis. So being able to see them, work with them, and hopefully invest in them and help them grow and build something in St. Louis is something that I really pride myself on, and something that easily my favorite part of the job. So just I think being able to kind of actively point out investments that I've done and seeing them hang up a sign on Del Mar or something is something really special to me, and definitely I think the most meaningful part of my fellowship experience.
Thank you.
I will say for myself, the most meaningful part of my fellowship experience so far is getting laid off, because that really launched me into doing my thing. And I knew before I got laid off, I should be doing my thing, but always following that voice in my head is no, you don't have this, you don't have that, so you can't do your thing, or you can't focus on that. But when I got laid off, I went home and I was crying, and I said, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot continue to walk around with this dream and this goal inside of me and not pour into it. And so for me, getting laid off was the most meaningful experience I've had throughout this whole entire fellowship, because had I not got laid off, that would not have catapulted me into trusting in my own self and trusting in my own vision. So I am forever grateful for being laid off and really being pushed off a path that was not for me. Rejection is redirection, and I leaned so hard into that. So that's my most meaningful experience so far out of being in VFA, that rejection.
Oof. Look, startups, please hear that. That rejection was what did you say again? What was the bar? The rejection was what?
My redirection.
The rejection was my redirection. If we haven't heard pivot enough in the last 3 years, that is a better way to say it. I love that. Okay, I'm sorry, Alfred.
It's all good. No, that was a word. Yeah, I mean, so I think now being 5 years out of VFA, I think one of the dopest things is one is like we had two portfolio companies at Arch Grants, one Boat Exchange, one Rebundle, and the week that I decided to move to St. Louis in 2018 was the week that the co-founders of both of those companies were moving to Charlotte for VFA. And I remember telling them, hey, like I had one of them come by for Thanksgiving dinner. I was like, hey, I'm about to move to St. Louis. And then like a year later, I'm like, yo, like this St. Louis thing is really working out for me. I think you all should apply for Arch Grants. And then seeing them apply to Arch Grants, get an Arch Grant, and then seeing both of them, becoming like real leaders in the St. Louis business community. I think just seeing that every single day, like that's something that is gratifying to me, because I think if you kind of get down to the kind of quintessential ethos of what being a Venture for America Fellow is, it's, you're creating opportunities for yourself, but you're also creating opportunities for the people that are around you. So like being able to be in that position at like 24 years old, that's a blessing. And I think the other one, talk about like, we're all kind of transplants, or you're from here, but you went off to school in a different, market. I think one of the things that I always appreciate too is, I kind of mentioned having an older friend that was good friends with my mom, and like me being here in St. Louis and family being extremely far away, I remember my mom called me and she was like, yo, I just want to let you know, Mr. So-and-so called me. He was just saying people speak well about you in the community. And like, that's just something that was unprompted. And to like hear him hear my mom say that he called her and was just like, I want to let you know that like your son's doing good. I think those are gratifying experiences, because if I'm in New York, if I'm in Chicago, while yes, I could be doing good work, but the visibility of like people being able to speak well about your name, I think that's the one thing that's good about being in a market like St. Louis, where we can all be pretty young in our careers, but we have visibility and where folks can say, oh, like this person's actually doing good work, and can like really kind of, kind of lift you up in a way. So I think that's like two of my, best experiences here. And then last thing, now that I think about it, talk about like friends, what Nate just mentioned. Like the last 3 years I've been going to, I think I've gone to 10 weddings, and like most of those people have been VFA people. And like just like those are friends that you make from when you're 21 years old coming out of college. And now some of those friends are, running their own companies, or they're principals at massive venture funds, or they're building really cool consumer product companies. And just kind of knowing that like those are friendships that you have right now, but if you look at the long tail of relationships 20, 30 years down the line, I'm like, man, like I can't wait to be able to, something that I didn't have growing up, which is like parents with a really diversified network, like knowing that that's something that I can give my kids because I had this fellowship experience. I think that's something people can really discount. And I think people look at the pay, people look at like what you don't get by like taking the hit on pay early on in your career. But it's like, no, yes, you may not have like the money right now, but in 10, 15 years, you're about to be able to have an amazing cornucopia of people, I guess that's the right word or whatever, to kind of use my GRE words. Just like really be able to have like dope people in your network that a lot of folks that are coming from underrepresented backgrounds don't have. But the moment you get into this thing, you can, like now you have all this human capital at your disposal.
Oh, I like that. Okay, Jess, and then I want to actually, if you guys have any questions, I have one more question after Jess.
Okay, perfect. I'll just build off of that. I think, I wear a different hat. I'm not a fellow or an alum, but I love wearing this hat because when I first moved here, it was so hard to meet people. It was so hard to break into spaces. And even the friends that I had made in college who were St. Louisans, like they had families and they had all these obligations, and so even then it was hard to like have a community. And so I love being able to like wear this hat and give back. Like I have a city guide that's like, here's where to live, here's where to eat, here's all the great things happening in the city. And I love being able to introduce that to people, you know, even if you are here, you're younger, you don't have those same experiences. So for both the people that come here and both the people that stay, like really showcasing what St. Louis is and what it has to offer. And then also like, I love that Keisha Mabry coined the term friendaholic. My husband gets so mad at how many times I say so-and-so's my best friend or bestie or I love this person, and it's because there are a lot of really great people here, and I love being able to be that like pollinator and connector, and to say like, hey, like, you know, even from our perspective as a business, like we've run into so many problems navigating, you know, the systems here, because it is a city county, you have to go between two different, and then you also have to go through the state. So it's really lovely to be able to be like, hey, so-and-so had the same manufacturing problem, go talk to them, they'll be happy to talk to you. Because that's another thing about St. Louis is like, even though we can feel pocketed and siloed, we love to give back, we love to share, so that like we all can be successful together. And so that's for me the meaningful experience, is really being able to like do that, connect people and help them be successful. Because like, yeah, it can be really hard to navigate it on your own, and that's why I love doing the VFA thing.
Yes. And I gotta give it up to you, Jess. Like, I would not be here. You really, like, no, like, can we give it up for Jess for a minute? Let me tell you why. You're not from here, but you really have, like, not even a similar, you're creating a new culture. Even like with this panel, this is so much diversity in age, location, in our work that we do. You're doing a really great job, and I'm really honored to be able to serve as a board member. But I really think that if we could really adapt this culture, this mindset in our culture across the board, economically, social, whatever it is, all the demographics, right? All of the target, or whatever it is, if you can adopt it, we need diversity in thought, diversity in people, and we are actually better because of it, right? This experience, like, I'm not a fellow or an alum, but I feel really connected to the mission, and I wish I would have known about a VFA when I was at my HBCU. Y'all shout out Charles. I wish I would have known that this was an option for me, right? Like, think about how many of us, we want to start businesses, but like most of us fail because we don't have the experience, we don't have the human capital, we don't have whatever that might look like. This is such a rich environment, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it. So thank you. Okay. All right. Last question, you guys. What strategies could be implemented in St. Louis to create a more central place for sourcing entrepreneurial talent? That's part one. Okay. Because I'm gonna get both of these in. And then where do you see the ecosystem in the next 5 years? So where can we have a more centralized space for entrepreneurial talent, and where do you see our ecosystem in the next 5 years? Anybody can start. And then we're gonna be open for questions if anyone has
it. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of what we've said here today is like growth, right? There's a lot of growth happening. Really, really excited about Emily Hemingway's leadership with Tech STL.
For sure.
And I know it's Tech STL, but it's also entrepreneurship is under that hat. And right now they have like a tech job board. And I mean, I will tell you this, like in trying to find jobs and find startups and see what's out there, I'm looking at every VC's portfolio. I'm looking at ArchGrant's portfolio. I'm looking at that Tech STL job board. I'm going through LinkedIn. I'm going through Indeed. And so like I think, and I hope, that like eventually we have a space that's like, here are these jobs that everyone can kind of go to and find. And I don't know if that sits there or if it sits somewhere else, you know, maybe Cortex with all the leadership and development that they're doing in that space. Like, I just wish there was that, because it is really hard. And again, like sometimes it is word of mouth, you know, even when we hire, we may put it out on Indeed for Barkeep and the Vandy, but like we also want to make sure that like the people coming in understand what it's like to work in a startup space. Like one day you may be making cocktails with, the other day it was not bees, but yellow jackets, and know that like it's not going to be the like best scenario, but you're still going to be interacting with people and like representing the brand and doing your own creative thing with our cocktails, and it's still a space and you're getting out of a typical restaurant. So like that entrepreneurial mindset and grit is really important. And so like finding, like I hope that we have a space where people can see like the diversity of the startups and small businesses and the needs that they have for talent.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm going to tackle the second part of the question, which is where do I see it in 5 years?
Yeah.
I really do see St. Louis going places. And I mean that I mean that in a
So you
genuine.
gotta stay here then. Okay.
I'm gonna stay here until my endeavor get up off the ground. I can definitely promise that. But once I make my stake, I don't know. God might say my time is up here. Yes. So let me get back to the question. But I do think that St. Louis is putting in a lot of effort to make our city be more attractive to younger people. Even myself, I was very surprised when I moved back, and I was like, oh, okay, it's kind of some stuff going on here, some things to do. Places to go, people to see. So I do see St. Louis going in a completely different direction, because I think it's understood that St. Louis was becoming a place where it kind of was getting a little stale, for lack of a better term. But I think the city really understood and realized we have to make some changes. We have to make this city more appealing, and we have to stay relevant. And so I think that they're using this second wind and really going with it with our soccer team and food halls and just all types of other things and places coming here. It looks very attractive to me. So I think if St. Louis can stay on that trajectory, we'll be very good. And I'll be very excited to possibly think about staying here.
Oh, we didn't shout out XFL. Any football fans in here? I'm really proud of our XFL.
Well, they're
team.
moving to LA now.
What?
Yes.
I didn't know this. Okay, so The Rock, I got beef with you now. Okay, all right. No, go back. Alfred. I like our football team. Okay, no, yeah.
Yeah, that's wild.
Right? I did not know.
They are leaving us, just like the Rams did.
All right.
Well, yeah. Going like the central location question. I think one is just right now is co-working spaces. I think like CIC, T-Rex. If you look at pre-pandemic, these are great hubs for folks to kind of have a lot of entrepreneurial talent, kind of like all be in the same building. And I think that's what drove a lot of the fun part about being in VFA in St. Louis. I think as we kind of come out of now we're kind of on the other side of at least the quarantine period. Like, it's just reinvesting in the importance of in-person, like even maybe not working in person all the time, but at least connecting in person. And I think, thankfully we have these dope co-working spaces to be those things. And it'll be a long track to like get everybody be back in the office, but at least is investing in making sure that we all come out to things like STL Startup Week. Anything that Tech STL is doing, we definitely need to support it. And then it's not only just those two things, it's when you hear about a dope, entrepreneurial fair happening down on Cherokee Street, like you should probably go to that. And, you should because I think also too what kind of gets lost in this whole like tech startup stuff is like St. Louis also has a fantastic and really, really dope like small business ecosystem.
We
and
do.
There's a lot of great, I think of like Profield Reserve, Golden Gems.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great.
The whole team at the Foundry, everything at the Foundry is amazing. Yeah.
So it's just making sure that we're also doing our jobs in regards to supporting that ecosystem as well, and making sure that that's the closeness aspect. And then in regards to like the next 5 years, I think St. Louis is going to be in a really dope place. I think I think organizations like Arts Grants will thankfully still be around. I think organizations like Cultivation Capital and Lewis and Clark, Native Pet might end up exiting in the next 5 years. So Nate, he might be an angel investing out here in these streets.
Hey.
So I think that's the exciting part is. That you have all the work that's been put in over the last 20 years. Ideally, you see more of these companies exit. Ideally, you see the talent coming out of those companies be interested in staying here and in investing in new talent. I think as WashU and as SLU and as Harris-O continue and UMSL continue to invest in their entrepreneurship programs, those things will go well. MTC still making investments so I just think you have to keep the train rolling and not get complacent and make sure that as we continue to move forward, that we appreciate what we have, because I think sometimes we forget that not every market has what we have.
Yeah.
So just appreciating that and continuing to invest in one another, and then hopefully, ideally, these companies exit and there's wealth creation that comes from it. So
I love that. Thanks, Alfred.
Yeah, that was really great. And then, as far as like a building like a central like spot for entrepreneurial like skill. So I think one thing that like St. Louis could use, and I don't know if anyone can build this, but for Venture for America, when you join, you get access to like platform called Connect, where it has both like the jobs listed and the companies listed, but it also has all like the fellows listed and all the talent listed. And then a lot of the companies end up actually finding talent, reaching out to talent themselves. So like for Native Pet, for example, like I wasn't really looking to be in the pet space, but then Native Pet reached out to me, said they needed a data analyst that was willing to live in St. Louis, and here I am. So I think having something like that, right, where with companies like with Arch Grants, like move to St. Louis, they know that they can find talent in city that can help grow their company. I think would be really, really beneficial for companies just to know that this is where they want to be and just stay in St. Louis. And as far as where I see us in the next 5 years, I mean, I know I've been here for a year now, so it's tough for me to really say like where I think it's going to be in the next 5 years, but I can say like where I hope it's going to be. So I do hope that we just continue to be excited about the city. There's a lot of great things happening, with the soccer team, with all this startup stuff. So I hope we continue to push that. We talked about really being positive about the city. So I hope in the next 5 years, like St. Louis really becomes like a city that people want to move to. Alfred compared us to Charlotte earlier, and I know. In St. Louis, right, like we do a very good job of retaining St. Louis people in St. Louis, right? Like Matt, for example, like from St. Louis, planning to live his whole life in St. Louis, which is great. Charlotte, on the other hand, I got my co-founders in Charlotte. Everyone in Charlotte is not from Charlotte. They're all transplants, right? I know. So it's very different, right? And I think what you need is both, right? Like you need a city that both has people that are from there, excited about it, like willing to show new people the ropes, like Matt's been, but then also people moving there. So you're not having to validate yourself when you're talking about moving to St. Louis. So I hope that we do get to that point, right, where people are really excited about St. Louis, what's happening here, and want to move here. And then last thing I'll say is I hope there's another company on the block, which is Seacycle, which is I'll plug myself for a second. That's the company I just started with a co-founder in Charlotte. We are a online marketplace for net positive brands. So brands and products that when you purchase from them actually have a positive environmental impact. So kind of like a step beyond sustainability. So we're really trying to build a community of customers, brands, suppliers of net positive materials. And it's really trying to help turn consumerism into something that's been taking from the environment for so long and something that's actually giving back. Right now we launched the website Seacycle.me. I'd love to talk about it with people, but it's all products that use recycled ocean plastic in their products. So all brands that use recycled ocean plastic in their products. So products that when you buy them actually are cleaning up the ocean. So it's not just a backpack. It's actually having a positive benefit as well. So I hope that company's on the block and we're have a headquarters in St. Louis. Maybe have an Arch Grant by then. I guess that's my spiel. So.
I'm here for it. Pop your stuff anytime you get startups. Look. All right, I'm sorry, Matt.
Let's talk after this.
Look, the money got next to you. All right.
I'm obviously pretty bullish on St. Louis in the next 5 years. I think, to repeat what Alfred said, that COVID definitely hit St. Louis pretty hard. I think harder than other cities. A lot of great restaurants and stores and just community small businesses shut down, which really hurt. But as we've come out of it, a lot of exciting things have also happened. The Foundry was built, the Armory was built. Like we have the best soccer team in the Western Conference and playoff bound. Like a lot of really cool stuff's going on. And I think as long as we stay focused and everybody buys in, from local government to community organizations to individuals and small businesses, we can get out of this little rut that we're in and come out better on the other side. I firmly believe that, and it's going to take everybody though. So.
I love that. Yes, I got you. I just want to tell y'all that y'all did an amazing job. Thank y'all so much. We're going to take some questions. And personally, I would like to see St. Louis in 5 years be more inclusive for moms. I love to support moms. And I believe that we're in a baby boom right now. So in 5 years, I hope that we have a ton of mom entrepreneur businesses, and I'm here to support them. All right, I seen Molly, and then I'll come and see you first. I'm gonna go to Molly first.
One quick
I'm
thing.
sorry, not Molly, Jesus, Melissa. Sorry.
One quick thing, we're gonna pass the mic around for questions so that it gets captured in the recording, so.
Okay, real quick to address some of the questions about Tech STL has a side organization, Startup STL, and I know Emily's getting ready to launch more robust things that do both what you were saying about talent and what Nate was saying about like one central place to like the front door into and direct connection into the workforce more broadly. So, you know, TBD, and follow Emily Hemingway and Tech STL on social if you want to know about that. But I would love to hear Jess talk a little. We've talked a lot about the talent and the people and the fellows and the benefits to them. If a company wants to hire, what is the benefit to the company? What's that value proposition? And what's that process from a logistics standpoint and all of that good stuff? Because, I just didn't feel like you got that out. And I would love to hear you give some more details for people that might want to hire somebody.
Cool.
Totally. We were trying to avoid doing like a VFA 101 sales pitch, but I love that you asked that. So she's also a parent, so her daughter is based in Charlotte and was actually just promoted. So she's doing really great over there. And it's great to send St. Louisans into other cities. But the value proposition is that it's a 2-year fellowship. You are paying for talent just because we are a nonprofit, so it goes back to into our operations. But for those 2 years, like I said, I help people, Matt is like Mr. St. Louis, so I connect them with past alum and fellows to welcome buddies. We get you that city guide and get you really connected and ready to move to St. Louis, or if you're already here, say you're finishing school or whatever, we are also helping you get more connected and deepen your roots in the city. So we're really doing that for 2 years. We also have national programs, so right out the gate, they go 2 weeks to training camp most of the time before they've started with their startup, and they get a plethora of professional development sessions. There's resume reviews, there's mock reviews, so a lot of development. And then their second year, they're going and doing setting goals and thinking about the past year and really thinking about their future and what that looks like. And so there's sessions like managing up, all the things. And then also locally, for the 2 years, we do quarterly programming. We also have an in-city City Leadership Council, which CeCe and Nate are both on, and Matt was previously on, where they help also plan some events and also potlucks and things to keep fellows and alum connected. So we're really trying to drive, the needle in 2 years by offering continued professional development locally and nationally, by really getting you connected and deepening your roots in St. Louis, really showing off the city, and then also connecting you to local mentors. I'm always doing that. I'm like, you should talk to, I just connected somebody to Maxine Clark today, who really wants to pick her brain on things. So we're constantly doing that over those 2 years.
Can I follow up to that? Absolutely. The biggest thing that people that aren't from St. Louis that come here is they don't feel connected. So all of the things that you were saying is really VFA is to help people feel connected and grounded to the city and giving them that support outside of the workplace, right? You're training the talent, you're giving them the skills that they need to do the job. VFA is helping them stay sustainable in the city.
And we're adding the safety aspect. We use a strong DEI lens. So we're really trying to, look at this panel. We're trying to really elevate underrepresented folks in the startup field. And because we know diversity is great for all the things, right? Innovation. But St. Louis does get a lot of media headlines that says we're a very dangerous city. So I'm constantly talking to fellows and their parents about how safe it is. And then again, connecting them with welcome buddies and saying, hey, you don't get to see what St. Louis really is in these articles. This is what it is. This is why we get that reputation. It's really a safe place. Let me connect you with people that'll help you, because I'm a white woman. I can't always walk that journey. And so luckily we do have a diverse cohort, and we have advisory board members and great community partners. Melissa, I'll shout out, SLU, and even Startup Week, Matt. There's a lot of great people here in the room that want people to be successful and want them to be here, and we lean into that.
All right, we have time for one more question.
Real quick, I would love to see the Department of Economic Development involved in this. I would love to see SLAA, which is our Convention and Visitors Bureau, know about startups and push them and be able to collaborate on what's good with St. Louis and for business. And all the real estate agents should know that this is a great place to start a business. So some of that also has to do with collaborating in a more global way.
Yeah.
I like Venture Cafe as a central hub, but it could be something else. And I'm thrilled that there's going to be a startupstl.com. I would love to collaborate with that and make sure that everything that's in the current Startup Resources Guide is over there as well. Thank you, guys. You did a great job.
Thanks, and I'll add real quick before we close this out. We are in a partnership right now, like creating one with Arch Grants and Greater St. Louis, Inc., to bring some national programming through the VFA lens here in St. Louis, but really it's going to be like elevating and showcasing our ecosystem off on the national level. So we're going, well, I have a wedding because weddings, but Alfred and Gabe will be in Baltimore in October, kind of doing that pre-work to like announce that partnership and get people excited to come here next year.
All right. Thank you.
Before we do that, I'm sorry. Can we just give it up to the startup team? No, you guys.
Yeah.
All of you guys like did an amazing job, and I don't think you get your like Haley, Ben, Matt, Luke. You guys are amazing. You did an amazing job. So I just wanted to give you guys love. Thank you. All right.
And give it up for this great panel.